I'm Rockie Thomas. I'm a Chief Revenue Officer of Media Creek, which is a holdings company of Live365 as well as Empire Streaming. Today, I'm very psyched. I have a great panel on today. We're talking about ad tech and monetization, which, if anybody knows in the industry, is near and dear to my heart. Join me today, I have Mike Reznick, President of Reznick Digital. I also have Stas. I think I'm gonna say your name correctly. I practice this. Tushinskiy. Am I saying that right?
Almost.
Oh.
Yeah, let me do it. My name is Stas Tushinskiy.
Tushinskiy. Okay, I'm saying a little bit faster. And then I think we're also waiting. Travis Klein is hopefully going to be joining us from AdsWizz as well. And then we have Sarah Cotenoff. Am I saying that even right, Sarah?
Yeah, Cotenoff.
Yes,
I answer to both.
and so what I want to do is I was going to have these guys do a little bit of I introduce them, just so you know who is who. But I'd like to start with, I'll start with you, Sarah. Oh, hey, Travis. So Travis has joined.
Hello,
hey,
sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, it's, it's a whole change world. It's okay. We can't say traffic, but we can say it's Zoom issues, so that's absolutely fine. We're going to go around the room and just talk about a little bit about yourself and the company that you're representing. I'll start with you, Sarah.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Cotenoff. I am the head of partnerships of Podsights. We do analytics and attribution for podcast advertising. So we measure the effectiveness of podcast ads. Before that, I had my own agency. So I was doing buying. And before that, I was a seller at How Stuff Works. So I kind of have seen every aspect of this industry.
Perfect. Great. Mike, I'll kick it over to you.
Sure. Hey, everybody. Mike Reznick. Founded Reznick Digital about 2.5 years ago. Previous to that, spent a whole career in audio, from stations to networks, joined Triton Digital early days, and have spent my career running ad sales. The company, Reznick Digital, was founded to help emerging technology enter the audio space. So kind of a perfect panel where maybe I'm good for the panel because of that, but yeah, I've vetted a lot of emerging tech in the audio space, not from the technical perspective as much as from the business perspective. And I'm just a firm believer that the more we can bring to the ad community from a tech standpoint, the more we can grow our audio industry, the advertising dollars that come into it. So thanks for having me, Rockie.
Thank you. Stas?
Yeah, my name is Stas Tushinskiy. I'm CEO and one of the co-founders at Instreamatic. And Instreamatic is a voice AI platform for brands. We enable dialogue style conversation between brands and consumer across mass marketing channels. Audio is one of the biggest verticals for us. Originally, I'm from Russia, and we started digital audio advertising market there in Russian-speaking countries and with Instreamatic, and and that's when we learned that the entire audio advertising industry is suffering from this measurement challenge, and we thought that we should address that because there is still this massive disbalance between the reach the media has and the size of the market. So we're trying to fix that with voice AI technology.
Nice. Well, welcome, Travis.
Hello, thanks for having me. Travis Klein from AdsWizz. And for those who don't know, AdsWizz has a full end-to-end solution for delivering audio and monetization, which includes SSP, ad server, a DSP. We have marketplace and all sorts of other cool features to help you target your different audiences.
Well, great. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for Real Audio Day. I'm trying to think. I was going to kick off with my normal barrage of questions, but I think I'm going to start off with something that a little tangible. So past year, and I'm not even going to talk about COVID right now. So I'm talking up to about mid-March. In the past year, what have you seen has really been a big change in the space? Like, have you been seeing anything that's been, being more on tip of everybody's tongue? I would say that, a couple of years ago it was all about dynamic ad insertion. Now I think we've matured a little bit more in the industry. So anybody want to go ahead and talk about anything fun that fun, cool, whatever? Anyone want to take that one to start out with?
I'll go. So I got you. So
Thanks, Sarah.
you're welcome. So when we launched Podsights in 2018, we started introducing attribution, and it was more of a nice to have. And what we've seen like a year and a half later is it's starting to be a need to have for certain advertisers. Like they will not run podcast advertising without attribution. They want to see whether or not their ads are converting and how well they're working, whether it's with us or another partner. Like they need attribution. So that's been really exciting to see.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll take that just a little further, Sarah. Just moving into the overall audio ecosystem, streaming. I would say attribution has been, Rockie, there's been a move towards attribution, towards proving the advertising works, right? So, a lot of activity in the location attribution space, for example, as we can all get back to normal post-COVID and we can all walk into stores again and restaurants and takeout and coffee shops, proving that we've actually walked in the store and it was as a reaction to the audio commercial is, we know it works, right? Most of us on this sitting in the room right now, passionate about audio, we know it works. And the more we can prove that it works, then audio can take its fair share of dollars. So I'm watching carefully, with the Foursquare and Placed merger, what Ninth Decimal is doing, and other attribution companies like that.
I was going to roll it back just a little bit. Just so you guys know, we have a lot of different types of flavors of, I would say, publishers and podcasters and everything else in between. So let's go. What would you define as attribution? Because I think that gets thrown around a lot, and this is to anybody who wants to answer it. What does attribution really mean to an advertiser?
So maybe I'll start broad. I'm sure you have an answer too, Sarah, and all you guys do. I think it's proving that the advertisement, it's super broad, Rockie, and I'll probably
yeah, absolutely.
Everyone else. But that the advertising that somebody just heard actually made someone take an action. And I'll just stop it there.
Mm-hmm. It's basically, it's tying that action, like tying the advertising to an actionable, something that's trackable on the action side.
Trackable action. It could, and then the action could be walking into a store. It could be clicking, although CTR as a KPI is awful. Stas probably has a lot to say about that. So yeah, just taking the action to prove that ad led to an approvable action.
Great. Stas, let's go over to you on the, as far as I think you might want to talk a little bit more about your platform, because it's much like Podsights as well. AdsWizz has a little bit more of an advantage since being in the market, at least in the United States, for the past 8 years. So kind of talk about what kind of makes your model a little bit different, because it is kind of an attribution model of sorts. I would say it's a little bit untraditional.
Yeah, that's a good question. The good question, because voice marketing is going to reinvent the entire marketing fundamentals, all of them, because the classical marketing is built on reach and frequency. Mm-hmm. And the reason why was because the marketing is based on monologue experience, right? When you have a message and then you try to drive brand awareness by, reaching a certain level of frequency. But I think, at least in my opinion, the only thing it drives is craziness when I hear the same ad for 20 times in a row. It doesn't make me want to buy it. And now voice technology, voice AI technology, voice marketing allows us to reinvent those fundamentals, because now we can learn why 99% of people don't click on ads, because they can tell us why. Like, hey, I don't like this brand, not now, tomorrow, or even F off. And that has a lot of implications on marketing and communication strategy. So not only it provides accountability to the audio space, but also it puts audio marketing at the forefront of marketing communication, because there are so many, you can learn so many insights from voice marketing. And the good news is that audio has that reach to finally stand up in front of Google and Facebook, because what they've been good at is with performance driven marketing, right? And audio was lacking that, even though the reach is pretty much the same. And now it can. So, and we as a company, you can think of us as an intelligent layer that enables this, creates this bond between a brand and a consumer. From that perspective, we are not, a classical ad tech company. We're rather this AI upgrade that, and we work with ad tech companies and with publishers and with brands. So we are more on the dialogue side of things.
Yeah, agreed. And this, so you guys know, so what Instreamatic allows is ability, and I hope I'm going to frame this up right, is that when a person hears an ad, they get cued to, would you like to know more? Or give me one of your, one of the hooks you use maybe. It's so they want to know more, they can actually say, yes, I do. It allows the voice to actually interact with the ad, which is something that I think is pretty exciting, especially considering I don't ever like touching my phone when I'm driving. I wish there was more voice that was in there. And I always harken back to the days when I was a receptionist in the late 90s at my first radio station. And most of the responses I would get on the phone, besides, what was the last song was played, was like, I heard an ad. I heard an ad for insert the advertiser. And I'm digging through these old logs, taking my paper out and looking through everything. And I think that's what allows people to do, is essentially like almost bookmark, or be able to interact and be able to find out information about the advertiser at a later date, or be able to figure out a way to interact immediately, which I think is really exciting. Travis, I'm going to go ahead and kick over to you, because you are the platform. So you tend to connect everybody. You have the AdsWizz is known for their supply side platforms, their demand side platforms, as well as dynamic ad insertion, as well as a marketplace globally. So as far as what you've been seeing in the space, because you guys have your pulse on a lot of fingers and tracking. Ad tracking was the biggest thing that came out, server-side ad tracking in 2012. What are you kind of seeing, moving forward in the next couple of years, or even 6 months, that's going to start, that you guys are looking at, that has a lot of importance? And that could be podcasts, it could be linear, it could be anything. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I work with Podsights with some accounts. And so, I absolutely see attribution and measurement and data just increasing every day. There's yet another partner or someone else that we need to help connect. And I think it's really interesting. I think, as podcasts are maturing, I think there's a couple of things that are going on. I think people want to have a higher level of targetability. And, with that comes data, which, as we all know in the podcast space, there's just very little of. So, so we're having to get inventive on how to connect with different partners and how to bring that into the targeting space, since now we have larger agencies trying to buy. And, the agencies, not only do they want to measure the performance for their buyers, but they also want to target specific types of audiences, and they want a specific, whatever data sets that they're trying to tap into. So I think that's really good. On the other side, I think everyone's also questioning, was my podcast listened to? Like, I know we have IBV2 standards, but the question still remains, are we selling a download, or are we selling an impression? If an ad gets inserted, was it consumed? So those things still are arising, and I think we're all kind of answering those questions in a slightly different way, and it's very exciting to see that.
Yeah, I mean, do you find that, okay, this has been, I'm just going to be very blunt about the industry. I always found that sometimes the efficiency, like, I guess I would say the efficiency model of an advertiser sometimes comes to the detriment of a publisher. And when I say this is what I mean, is that we end up targeting down so far that we start to eliminate reach. And then it's where the buy started out, like, say, at $100,000. Now it's targeted down. We've been able to make it so efficient that this overall spend has decreased. Are you guys seeing that on your side? Are you seeing that the CPMs are increasing more based on the efficiency of the buy? Do you see my point? I feel like sometimes publishers lose money because they have so many tools to basically make their audience efficient.
I'm not sure if that was for me or not.
Oh,
but
anybody. I'm sorry. I'm really bad
I'll
at
jump in.
interacting.
I'll jump in and give you my 2 cents, but then, you know, I would love to hear other people. But but yeah, no, absolutely. We can target it down, like, you know, make this ad available for this one small city, or, you know, for 10 minutes, and that's it. And, you know, and of course, it's really worthless. But, you know, some of the tools that we're trying to expose and build out are not just the efficiency of targeting the exact audience, but also just from a publisher side. You may have lots of different shows that all exhibit certain kinds of audience behaviors or types or kind of contextual stuff to kind of make it more efficient to sell. Meaning, you know, creating an ad and targeting across, you know, each and every one of your shows or episodes that makes sense to that buyer. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to close the deal. It's a lot of work to traffic those deals, and it's a lot of work to report on those deals. So, you know, we're working on tools to kind of help that component of it, so you can still have a large scale and efficient, you know, buy, but, you know, it doesn't have to be, you know, excluding so much that, you know, maybe it's $1,000 CPM, but, you know, you delivered 100 impressions, you know.
Yep.
Doesn't
Yeah,
help.
and I want to, and I think I want to kind of like this talk a little bit, because we went right into ad tech, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about, because we do have a lot of broadcasters who are probably listening, who either just started a podcast, just started an internet radio linear station, or even or their broadcasters are trying to figure out, how do I basically, you know, approach this supply that I want to offer up to demand partners? What, like, at what point does, you know, scale it? What, like, I guess, how big do you feel that you have to be? And sir, I'm going to kick this over to you for podcasting, because I know that this is more, you know, in your house. Like, is it 1 million downloads a month? Is it 50,000 downloads a month? What ends up being like where you feel that you can go actually direct for like a representation, or even go direct to brand? Is there a number at that point?
Did you say Sarah?
Yes, I did.
Yes. So it's interesting, right? Like, when I was buying, I would tend to look at shows that were more established, but smaller shows have power. And we're finding that a lot with Podsights, that if a brand finds a smaller show that fits their niche, it will convert. So that scale doesn't necessarily need to be there, especially if you're packaging it with something else, or going to join a network, or going to join like a programmatic platform. It can be very valuable. So I would say, don't be scared by the fact that you don't have a huge audience. Like, you could still monetize yourself.
And no, it's interesting. I met a guy at Podcast Movement last year. He does like, I don't know, like 15 different podcasts on like, I would call horseback riding, English, Western. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how could this even A, be enough content for a network? And B, how do you get advertisers? And the advertisers he gets converts, because it is so focused. You're talking equine feed, you're talking about all these very small verticals. But at the end of the day, when I used to sell radio, I always ask the guy at the car dealership, how many cars do I need to push for you, where you feel like good and happy inside? What's your KPI? And I think really that you're right, because I think that, you know, very niche type of podcast, and also content, it's really connecting that advertiser and finding those two and getting them to work. And then obviously with tools like Stas and you and AdsWizz it really allows you to not only just prove your hunch, but actually, you know, it allows that data to really make it a holistic type of look of the buy. So I think it's really exciting to see that. Let's see, I wanted to also ask about programmatic platforms a little bit. And I know that in podcasts, it tends to get a little bit of a bad taste in its mouth about it. I look at programmatic as a way of transacting business online. I don't necessarily think about open marketplaces, although that is an element of it, in real-time bidding. I'm opening it up to anybody. Travis, I might kick this one over to you, because you deal with a lot of publishers and on both sides of it, as well as demand. Is programmatic looked upon as still like driving, you know, down to the lowest bid, or is it starting to get a little bit of a better flavor with podcasters now?
Yeah, so from my side, I mean, I think everyone's really cautious, because, you know, podcasts, they've been very familiar with doing their baked in host-read ads, where, you know, they sell the download and they have a great CPM, and that's it, you know. And And yes, we moved into dynamic, but there's still people who do a little bit dynamic, but their bread and butter is still that host-read baked-in ad. And so there's definitely publishers out there that are a little hesitant. And then there's others who, like, if they don't have a huge sales team and don't have a large amount of things, they're totally open for business. And that's really exciting from my side. There's lots of controls in the AdsWizz platform, but I'm sure in other ones as well, where you can say, I don't want to sell this less than $15. And you can absolutely, and if nobody wants to play the way the publisher wants, like, that's great. I agree with you. Like, programmatic is really, I've been throwing around the term automated buy, because everyone's like, doesn't really understand programmatic, and they hear some bad words, but really you're just shifting the trafficking team to somewhere else, which is, and you
hope they're good.
Yeah. I mean, I used to manage a team of traffickers and all this other stuff. I would love to not have to deal with all the trafficking issues. Let someone else deal with that. And I don't know why we're fighting that. Like, trafficking is a tough job on its own. Why do you want to own every piece of that,
Yeah, agreed. Well, then real quick, don't you guys also have an ability to track, like, when I say baked in ads? So, or am I mistaking? I'm trying to remember. So if I traffic a baked in ad, can I still track it in a podcast?
Are you asking me, or?
Yeah, I'm asking you, okay. Sorry. I'm
also we have so much tech, I don't want to take over here. But no, absolutely, yeah. So we can track, we can fire off pixels and stuff, third party on baked in ads if you want to do so. However, what I'm finding is most people, the second that they're ready to do, like, they want to give some of these extra efficiencies or tools, if you will, to a baked in ad, they'll just record it as a dynamic one. And and that's actually really promising, because the message that I'm trying to have both internally and externally is that there really shouldn't be anything that you cannot achieve dynamically that you could do baked in. I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit, every edge case, I'm sure we don't have everything sorted out just yet, but eventually you should be able to do your whole business dynamically, do those sponsorships, do the ad sequencing, whatever you need to do, have different endings of your podcast or beginnings if you want to play around with that. All that stuff can be done dynamically today.
Technology serves us all well. We use it. Yes, it does. Let's see, Mike, I have a question for you. So just so you guys have a little bit of a background, a lot of you know that I've been on the supply side of the business, which is I work with publishers since, I don't want to admit how long. Mike has been like my opposite. He's worked mostly on the demand side of the business. So I'm going to kick this one over to him. So, advertisers are trying to figure out the digital audio space. Is it that much, are we kind of slicing our revenue as an industry by bifurcating podcasts versus linear versus a music service? I mean, are advertisers starting to look at it as like an impression is an impression is an impression, and I'm connecting to that audience. I don't really care what platform it's on. How much is environment versus the actual the publishing platform?
So great question. I don't think we're quite there yet, where an advertiser's looking at an impression as an impression as an impression. I think we're getting a lot closer there. What's actually happening is a lot of the bigger holding companies are beginning to buy audio, linear audio, looking towards impressions and not GRPs, which is probably interesting for a lot of people on this call. And that's going to actually be able to make audio comparable to television. You probably read that NBC is going to go to impressions in 2021. So I think we're getting, like, from a mathematics standpoint and a buy standpoint, we're getting to an impression, realizing that's exactly what you asked.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, Mike, because it's like, I look at, is there a value to being on a certain, and this is where I think podcasts is done really well, as well as some linear properties as well. It's like you're part of that brand. So you have, like, call that lovely brand association, that why a lot of direct response guys like to advertise in certain ones versus the other. But what's interesting, with Stas, with your product over Instreamatic, it kind of puts it a little bit on the end. It's basically saying, you know, an impression is not an impression. I give you a smart impression. I give you a two-way interactive impression. Are advertisers ready to take on that message and understand that kind of conversation that might be happening? I mean, what's the lift for you to get advertisers interested into your product? Because let's be honest, a lot of them just count impressions, guys. I love my advertisers, but we live and die by the reach, you know?
Yeah. You know what? I never worked on a product that drove that level of demand, never in my entire life. Brands and advertisers, they recognized the value many years ago. I mean, for like, I think it's been 2 years since we had this phone call with this big CPG company in New York, and they told us we have budget to spend on voice. You don't need to sell us anything. We already bought it. We want voice. We have nowhere to spend it. And that's the common thing with brands and advertisers, because they see that voice marketing is a channel to build a relationship. It's not about chasing people with the same ads anymore. It's about like building an ongoing relationship. And one of the very cool features that we offer and voice marketing offers is an ability to leverage the power of storytelling by connecting multiple ads in a single narrative. So you can serve you can create a continuous experience based on previous response history in voice marketing. And that makes it like, it's a whole new way of storytelling. So brands love it. That would be the short answer.
It is, it does. And then as far as, I would say I'm gonna kick this one to you, Sarah. I feel like I'm doing like the Brady Bunch around here, Sarah. So I'm trying to like make sure it's just not a bunch of me just talking. So as far as what you've been seeing over at Podsights, so you work with a lot of, I think you and Stas are kind of saying the same thing. I used to always say advertisers have unlimited amount of money for advertising that works. And I think that both of you are actually proving this model. On Podsights, do you feel that it's being more demand driven, or do you find that the publishers are coming to you because they need to get you on the platform so they can execute these buys? So where is most of your business coming from? Is it coming from the demand side, or is it coming from the supply side?
That's a great question. So it actually has been coming, I would say, pretty equally from both sides, because the publishers want to be able to prove that what they're selling works so that their clients come back over and over again. The advertisers want to prove that it works because they need to go back to their bosses and say, hey, we bought podcasting. Here's why we should keep buying podcasting. So it really is a mix of both.
But it doesn't matter if it's on them, if it's a host read ad or if it's dynamically inserted with your product, correct?
No, we can measure both. And we really see that both are effective, and it really depends on like what the advertiser is looking for. And also, some publishers, still will only do baked in ads, and some will only do dynamic ads. Some do a mix of both. So it really varies.
It's like hybrid at best. So as far as I want to kick this one back over to you, Mike. What are advertisers really looking for right now? So when you like go talk to agencies or work with agencies, with digital audio, I'm not even talking specifically, or if you want to break it up to podcast versus broadcast or linear or even on-demand services, are they still in that kind of older mentality of looking for grips or GRPs, or what are they kind of looking for now?
I think they've evolved from there. Even if they sometimes buy on grips and GRPs, I think they realize that world's moving. They're looking for environments where their commercials are going to be heard. They're looking for scale, but that doesn't mean that the scale has to come from, you had an earlier question that asked about size, and I know you were referring probably more to podcast, but I think what's so attractive about our space is in most cases, it's the commercial clock. We're not the same as over the air, where there could be 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes an hour. We're running very few minutes. You have somebody who's come in to a station or a platform because they have a passion for it. They have some vested interest. They made a choice to go there on their mobile device or their desktop, and it's a fantastic environment to advertise in when there aren't commercial after commercial after commercial, right?
Yeah.
And they know that. they still want the scale because they still have to work it into an overall marketing campaign. And that's what I think we all should think about, is that this marketing campaign, whether it's Walmart or Casper Mattress, is still putting a certain amount of dollars, which could be in impressions or uniques or GRPs, different metrics, towards a campaign. And how can you as a medium help that campaign? And I think our biggest story in the streaming space and podcast is that we have a unique advertising environment. And I mean, we're way past having enough scale. I mean, we have plenty of it, and buy the big ones and buy the small ones, because you have a very loyal audience who's coming to listen to them. And there's a really good chance they're gonna listen through your commercial. There's no invitation to walk away from a commercial break, because it's just a couple and we're back to content. So I think that's what the agencies understand, and they're looking to buy us at scale, because we need to be part of a larger campaign.
Gotcha. As far as I always wondered that when I guess, do the agencies understand, this has always been the challenge throughout my career, is that in the agencies, sometimes digital audio gets kicked to the digital buyers. Sometimes they get kicked to the broadcast buyers. And then, or sometimes you have two separate teams that are doing audio, like I would say like an over-the-air audio spot, but they have two different teams buying that. What has been the trend? Sarah, have you seen it? Or Travis, or anybody? I'll let anybody take this one. Has the trend been that you're starting to see consolidation within the agencies and the brands, where they're looking at audio holistically now, or are they still separating it out?
A lot of the agencies, the traditional media agencies, are starting to make audio divisions. My counterpart, Bridget, who is the other partnerships person with me, she came from the audio division at Horizon. So they were just doing audio, and we're seeing a lot of these traditional media agencies really compacted into one, because it is very hard when you're dealing with digital buyers and radio buyers and broadcast buyers. They all ask different questions, and you really do need to understand how audio works in order to buy it effectively.
Well, not to mention that we also have the creative element of it. It's not something that, well, I would say TV is even harder. It's very hard to always say do production in a basement, like a production studio in your basement with TV, where audio tends to be a little bit easier to go ahead and get a creative element that you might not have, because you might only been a banner or a display advertiser in the past. Mm-hmm. So my wish has always been that, I wish the creative was better. I love good creative. And Stas, I think that when we talk about creative, I'm going to kick this one over to you, and then also to you, Travis, secondarily. But do you find that advertisers find that creative is an afterthought, but with your product, they can't think that way? They actually have to think about what they want the call to action to be. Do you find that's been beneficial, or is it slowing down your business model, or do you think the agencies are really, are they able to do that? I mean, I'm not poo-pooing agencies. I'm just curious on their level of how they can handle this.
Right.
Meaning, do you hold a lot of hands?
Some of them are really excited about the opportunity to charge a little bit more for creative production.
Yes.
Others really count on us in terms of helping them with building those dialogues in a way that it would work, because obviously we have a lot of knowledge how you should structure just the message itself, so that people understand what should they say and how they should respond. So at this stage, we help them a lot, and we do a lot of educational work at the moment. But the good news is that it's not video production, so you can have creatives ready to go within a day. So
yes,
super simple.
Yeah, I would say that with the new world order of things right now, I think audio is doing a lot better than our TV and video guys right now, which I'm always really grateful for. Travis, with kind of a similar kind of question, I know, how much education is still happening on the buy and supply side? But I'll talk a little bit on the DSP with Audiomatic, which is the buy side platform you guys have. I know it was a lot of hand-holding a couple years ago. Are we starting to see that people are kind of, especially with the training at IEB, heck, IEB is even doing digital audio training now, for goodness sakes. Are you finding that you're still having to do a lot of explanation of how to buy this space?
Yeah, I think, you know, they're not used to understanding what's, what are the features that they can even have options to do. This varies from platform to platform, which I think causes extra confusion. On top of that, each show, people still want to buy the shows, and sometimes, there's the conversation of the audience and the conversation of the show happening, and it feels like it hasn't really made its way all the way up. So there's still training happening on that scale of it. But I think it's getting better as we're building the right tools to kind of bring it closer to parity with what we have on, on the streaming side of the business. I think that's where, it'll become easier as we all start to, absorb and internalize those terms that podcasts just happen to have.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and I think it's always been one of the strengths of podcasts in the early days, especially, was the host read, which a lot is still going on, which implies that kind of endorsement. And I think that as a girl who used to sell the heck out of personal endorsement years ago, I love personal endorsement. The thing I don't like about personal endorsement when it comes to podcasts is the scalability, or the challenge of scalability with. I mean, I was just thinking about the 3 on-air guys I had to track down to get copy points to. And when I think about like a very large company, like even like an Ad Results that has thousands of like studio hosts and everything, I just think of how crazy that just must be. But I think I think moving forward, what we're going to start seeing is a little bit more how technology is going to be helping that out. And I think that just because it's a pseudo read ad doesn't mean it's less effective. And I mean, I think, we've proved that within the space and the model. I'm going to go ahead and kind of kick to each individual one of you guys about kind of like what do you see? I love the point, like the pie in the sky a little bit. If we could go ahead and look in the next couple of years, and let's kind of take all the craziness that's going out, because I believe it's going to pop back, not as quickly as we want, but I do believe in recovery. But over at Instreamatic, you started working with Pandora about a year ago. I know I don't want to get really into the details of it, but was there lessons learned working with such a large publisher with ad tech like yours that was new to them, and how they were trying to utilize that within their own company?
Yeah, I mean, we were really blessed by this partnership, and I have to say, people at Pandora are like truly amazing, really innovative company. Yeah, and they have a lot of interesting ideas. We had this knowledge exchange, if you will. But the reality is this movement is truly global. I mean, every week we're getting like inbound email from different parts of the world, and this product is now live not just in the US, it's India, Japan, Russia, going live in a couple more markets in the following month. So, I mean, for publishers, for media companies, especially for the large ones like Pandora, this product first, it provides a much better user experience, which is always the key thing for publishers. Then it also significantly improves ad yields without additional investment in the sales force, or without the need to grow the user base. So you have all things equal, but revenue goes up. So it's like, it's great, and brands want this because they cannot buy it anywhere. And it's great to see that the audio industry is still on the rise. It's like the Renaissance, right? But now we have the tool to make it like the sexiest format out there. In terms
the succulent stuff. Very, very well. It is very sexy. That I've always loved your product. But I would say that always the challenge has been, especially for something like podcasts, I would say podcasts would probably be a challenging supply for you guys, just because it's consumed in so many third-party platforms, and unless the third-party platform adopts your technology, it causes challenges. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, but we can start small. Imagine you are listening to a podcast on Pandora, and then you have a virtual conversation with the host. Wouldn't that be great?
Well, I would love that. I don't know how the host would be like, oh my gosh, this is really my listener. It could be pretty expanding. As far as, I guess, one last question for you, then I'm going to hop over to you, Sarah. So what is your utopian kind of publisher? Like, is it a size? I would say probably has to have a decent amount of like in-app or, type of like listening on app, I'm assuming.
Right. As of this moment, our sweet spot is mobile apps, native mobile apps, Android and iOS. We are working on other platforms at the moment, but currently we're live on mobile apps. So yeah, a perfect publisher is the one that has mobile apps.
Mobile apps and lots of listeners on the mobile apps. That would be good.
Yeah, and Android browsers as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. Okay, good to know. So, okay, Sarah, what are you guys working on? Like now that you guys got it out the door, what kind of innovation are you guys just building the stack to scale, which is absolute innovation, by the way. I'm in the middle of that myself. But what are you guys looking at? Like what's being asked by a lot of your clients?
Yeah, so we want to be able to work with as many advertisers as possible. So one thing that we recently rolled out was being able to measure mobile app downloads and in-app activity. So that's been exciting because that's like a whole new group of advertisers we can help. The other thing we just rolled out is incremental lift studies. So really seeing like how much lift the ads actually drove. So yeah, that's been the two most recent things we've been working on. There's a whole
it just grew.
Yeah.
That's like I know. All of us are very busy. I know. When I read these, Twitter feeds of, I'm so bored. I'm like, I don't know who you are. I am so not bored right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I was happy I was able to get all this together with you guys because we are definitely, I think all of us are very busy. Mike, so your company helps other companies of many different flavors. So kind of like what do you think, like, what are the innovation opportunities? Like, what are companies, like, what are they struggling with that they're hoping that technology, if it's not there yet, when, like what is it going to be? Is it order management? What area are people just like, oh my gosh, this has gotten huge?
So great question. If I, and I'm going to combine your question with my utopia. Let's put utopia 2 years away, right? Like you said. I see radio, let's call it radio, audio, but radio becoming more digital. And it's going to be digital. It's going to be, audio is just going to sit side by side with video and native and content integration and all the different mediums. I'm actually seeing budget shift back from traditional teams to digital teams. And that's a good thing for everybody because ad budgets follow people, right? Yep. They just follow people. So if we're all sitting there in a digital world, which the word digital might go away at some point, right? That's just the world we live in. Anything we can do to make it easier to buy and make the advertising more effective. And we touched on creative a few times here. I think that's going to be a really critical component to the future. And that is delivering the right message to the right person at the right time. We've all heard that. Stas is doing it with his product for sure. I think if you think about display and video, there's usually a lot of versioning that's created. And I would say for anyone who is, taking on advertising that is a repurpose of an over-the-air spot, that's not going to work in the digital world. But I think more and more agencies and brands are realizing that they have to think about the environment that the person is listening in at that moment, and what's the best way to serve an ad, and what's the best type of ad.
And I would agree with that. Was always kind of the challenge that like in the early days when we started doing some programmatic with podcasters, is that I was really trying to harp with the brands to say, listen, you need a different tone. I think is the best way, because it was really, because I look at like Home Depot, and it's not that their ads are ridiculous by any means. It's not like, you know, Flo or Geico yelling at you, but the point is that I think we need to look at the tonality of where your end point is. And it's, I look at Home Depot going, why are you not advertising on DIY type of craft, like, you know, podcasts in a different type of like tonality of commercial? And I think you're absolutely right. It's always been frustrating to me that we spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of distributing these ads, and we take 1% to do creative, which I would think would be the first thing you'd spend a lot of money on, you know? So I think that's more of my frustration, is that I think good theater of the mind is good theater of the mind. I think that's why podcasting has done well. And I think that why, you know, Stas's product has done really well, because it's a two-way communication. I think that branches really, really want that. Travis, you guys have been busy over there. So there's a couple of products. There's one that I'm kind of geeked about that I'm looking forward to seeing you guys launch, called Podscribe. And I wasn't sure how beta it was, so I don't want to, like, I hope I'm not, like, you know, getting Kate mad at me by saying this, but could you tell me a little bit what you guys are doing with contextual targeting? Because I think it's really interesting.
Oh, absolutely. It's rolling out. And also, I was just going to throw out there, like, kind of on the heels of what Mike was mentioning, you know, people also, you know, I'll get into Podscribe, trust me, I love that as well. But we have another one called Dynamic Creative Optimization, where you know, based on the audience, based on something about their listening experience or the weather or whatever you want, you know, you can still have that host talk and record all the different components of an ad and stitch it together real time. So it gives, you know, podcasts, I like to think of them as storytelling. And so we wanted to tell a story throughout the episode. You want your ads to tell a story, and the advertisers have their own story to tell, and everyone wants to have a nice stitched story, you know. So that's one way we can do it, where we can, you know, if you know, if we had some information about this, you know, we would say, you know, welcome World Audio Day, you know, and we can, you know, brought to you by Geico or whatever it is, right? And we can make it really nice like that. And so that's one of the features that we're rolling out that I
just want to make sure I'm understanding. So basically it would be that it'd be able to insert based on my location. So say I'm in Colorado, it would be like, hi, Colorado Geico listener, or so. We've gone beyond the days where it'd be like, hi, Colorado Geico listener, like where people would insert that horrible sounding. I mean, it seems to me we got the fluidity worked out where it actually sounds like it's part of the ad.
Right, exactly. So obviously someone's going to have to record all the different variables that you may have. But then, you know, once we have all those variables based off of the listening experience or the audio or something unique, we can trigger different components of these pre-recorded ads to stitch together and get that better, more customized listener experience, just on the creative components there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then
give me a little bit about Podscribe now.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So Podscribe, this is like every day for me right now. It's super exciting. And really, just to take a step back, the problem that we're trying to solve here is that buyers and agencies, they're so far away from the you know, the creators of these podcasts. And podcasts is not like music where, you know, you can have an angry song and it's still not that crazy or bad or whatever. Like, advertisers still won't avoid it, you know, but podcasts can go really controversial super fast. And that's the kind of stuff that scares buyers away. And, you know, you could be at a comedy show and suddenly you're trashing on somebody. And that's the scary part. And so we're trying to solve that and solve that problem as well as just the scaling problem. So what we're doing is we're connecting with the creators of these podcasts, and we're absorbing, we're understanding their audio, looking for signals inside the audio where we can tell whether it's, you know, what's the context of the show. Is it based around a certain keyword? What are the IAB categories that it connects best with? Even the news codes, but also the part that I really like is that we've connected with ComScore, where we can now provide brand safety on that. So if you want something like, you want to run this ad and maybe you don't want them talking about alcohol, or maybe you don't want them something that's not safe for work, or all the different, you know, even in the midst of our coronavirus, Comscore has, epidemic or pandemic, brand safety stuff. So like, people may want to avoid, they may want to run an ad and they want to run it across your entire network, but if anyone starts talking about coronavirus, boom, shut that ad down. And so, so now we're offering those tools, and yes, it's rolling out as we speak. And, buyers are really excited in using these new features because.
Well, when it's interesting, because this is something I was doing at LA Times, like, gosh, 8 years ago with display. We used to call it Target Away. It was basically, if you're United Airlines and there is a story about a airline crash, they don't really want to be on there. So you're able to target away from that, which it's a type of brand safety within contextual terms. But I also think it's really interesting because as much as people want to target away from stuff, I believe that there's advertisers who might want to target to it as well, which is, always been kind of like the challenge, and especially with podcasts, ones that have such a, such a wide variety of, I was thinking even like a House of Works or a Radio Lab, or ones that have such a wide variety of different types of flavors of things that they cover. I could understand why that becomes really, really important, which is, I think, really exciting. So I think it's going to be, it puts a whole new element to how you can target within podcasting. Would love to see that live one of these days on talk stations. I think talk stations get put into the same type of issue. I know it's linear. I know all the guys at AdsWizz are like, oh my gosh, what's Rockie talking about on air? But it's because really right now, this is a problem with Corona right now, is that nobody in news stations are taking off and news podcasts are taking off like you would not believe. And they can't really, they can't make any money off of it because no one wants to ever target news stations because of that issue. So I'm looking forward to all the new stuff that's coming up. Okay, we're 9 minutes away. I'm trying to be a good moderator, but before I roll on to even any more questions, John, my moderator up,
Yes.
let my board up. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Yes, we actually have 3, so we're gonna go ahead and take them in order. So Jess was asking about host-read and promo codes. So I kind of rephrase the question. So what are your thoughts on effectiveness of host-read ads that include promo codes for attribution tracking?
Sarah, I'll let you take that one. I know that's your house. Oh, you're on mute. Sorry, I'm just telling you.
Sorry, there's a huge storm outside my window and trees were crashing into my window. I was like, I got to mute this. So yeah, promo codes are great because they create a sense of urgency. But if you're trying to measure the effectiveness of that ad and you're only looking at promo codes, it's not really an accurate way to gauge the effectiveness. People are in the car, they're cleaning their house, they're walking their dog. They're not going to go immediately to the website and remember the promo code. So also promo codes leak. So it's great to create a sense of urgency, not so great to measure effectiveness.
Good answer. Anybody else? No, I think, all right, next question. Great answer, Sarah.
Yes, thank you. So we have another one from Derek in the audience. So he asked, can you guys discuss ad sharing and radio and how does that work? So I think this question was related to GRPs, gross rating points, that you were talking about, Mike. So if you want to maybe give a quick overview about what GRPs are and how they kind of work.
Got it. Okay. So GRPs in the radio world, or any world, TV too, are just a percentage of the audience in that demographic. So if, let's say in Portland, Oregon, there are 1 million adults 25 to 54, and you reached 100,000 of those people, you have delivered 10 rating points. When a big radio campaign enters the market, and you're hearing it all over the place, and we know, it's whether it's Progressive or Home Depot or Lowe's, or then that is, they're probably buying about 150 GRPs. If it's bought nationally, it's 150. 1% of that population is essentially what that means.
So each gross rating point equals 1%.
Sorry, yeah, I should have kind of rolled over.
No, that's okay. No, that's okay. It's
exactly, and it's just a way to measure the how much of something you are buying. I think it's a great question, and something that as over the air and linear is becoming, there's more just shift towards digital ad spending. those types of statistics like GRPs are going to give way to other more current statistics like impressions, frequency capping, and share of voice.
Yeah, agreed. All right, John. Also, John, if you don't mind, before you tell me the last question, do you mind putting everybody's information in the chat? So if anybody wants to listen, wants to reach out to learn more about these guys' business or follow-up questions, I would love for people to be able to do that. So sorry to add that task to you for the last question there, John.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have 3 questions. We got 2 more that came in. So thank you, Jacob and Scott. So going in order, this one is from Anonymous. So how does a business advertise with a campaign partner who works in various internet radio stations collect any revenue? What would you consider the CPM, or what would you consider the fee should be for a business, and how much should I collect for the production of the message? So I think the question's more related around CPM values. So maybe we can kind of compare what it is.
So is this do you think it's like how much should the creative be as part of the overall buy, or?
I would split it into 2. So yeah, cost for production, and then what we're kind of seeing generally for CPM values, whether it's host-read or dynamically creative.
Stas, I'm going to kick production over to you. I do not know production rates right now. I mean, I don't even know. Sorry, that was a hard ball to you.
I would assume for, well, you know what? I think I shouldn't say because there is so...
So they're different, right? I mean, I think,
right.
So I can quasi answer this. I don't know my latest rates because I haven't dug into production lately. I know there's a lot of sites that will do like good reads for you. So somebody has a really good voice, a good radio voice, or you have different flavors of voices that you want, that you can go ahead and do that. And then there's a next layer where it's like a music bed, and then there's 2 voice parts. So I think that, and then there's also people who do copywriting. And I will tell you, that is a lost art. I'll find my soapbox, but if you find someone who's a really good copywriter for you guys and what your advertiser is doing, I think that's going to be really, a strong proposition. The second part of that question, John, was he's talking about, say it one more time. I will try to get in my head.
Just around like general CPM values. So what are you guys seeing in the industry for, let's take it linear, and then in comparison to podcasts, and is there differences in programmatic podcasts versus people doing live reads? I mean, I know it can kind of be all over the place, but what do you guys think?
I mean, I can take it, but you got, they don't want to hear me talk.
You're allowed to.
Who wants to take it?
You're allowed to, Rocky.
Are you passing it to me? Stas, I know you get the best rates. Okay. Sarah, I think you probably get the second best rates. No, and I would say that it really depends. Okay, direct local advertising for audio, if you have an OTA seller, you can get upwards to like about $20 to $30 CPMs. That is, I am the seller in the local market and I'm selling directly to do insertion locally. I would say that stuff that Stas is doing is probably about that high as well, I'm guessing. I'm probably thinking that you're probably getting a pretty darn good direct local rate just because of your interaction, your conversion. I would probably say Sarah is probably going to be depending a little bit higher if it's a direct read with a very sought out host. And then I would say that nationally, though, if we're talking programmatic, and Travis, you can keep me honest on this, I would say that if it's a programmatic marketplace or a direct deal, depending on the targeting, they can range anywhere between $12 and $8 CPMs, all the way down to $4 for stuff that's less targeted. I would say that generally, if we would look at this entire space, and I'm talking net to publisher. Sorry, let me classify that. This is not gross numbers, guys. This is not the publisher. This is the world. This is the world that I live in. So how much a radio station would probably get in their pocket? And then I would say for Run Network, I just want to touch anybody in the United States. I don't have any geos. I don't have any demos. I just want to basically blanket it. We're probably looking at about a $2 to $250 CPM rate. I think I got them all.
I mean, I think you know the answer. It's impossible to say, right? Because a premium podcaster is going to charge more just for that, and
it's how much they convert, and that's exactly the thing. It's like you could charge $1,000 a spot if you sell a $10,000 product for a guy.
Exactly. There's that, and there's also like, we have to, in order to target, maybe you're just targeting CEOs or whatever it is. Like, there's data components on that, and maybe you're paying for a guarantee of delivery, and there's all sorts of other components that people are using to either get more of what they want, or or charge more to give that to the buyer. So there's no real answer.
I always like to say, get as much as you can, and when people start saying no, you reduce it 5%.
I agree. Take what you can while the good is going.
Well, that's good. And I think there's one more question. Oh, we're right at the top. Is it going to be a quick question or not, John? I'm not sure.
So we have one more. We actually have two more. So Jacob and Scott, if we don't get to them, send an email to help@live365.com and then just flag this webinar, and I'll make sure to track down to get an answer for you. But we'll try to go through the one from Jacob really quick. So does your podcast ad have to follow Federal Trade Commission rules?
All of us are. I'm like, another 3-letter acronym? Oh my gosh, FTC. I really don't know. I have to be honest.
I think you might have stumped everybody.
I read I read an article on this a long time ago, and I think I was even shocked that FTC was like involved. So we're talking about basically switch and bait type of rules, like anything that's
maybe false claims,
predatory. Sorry, Mike?
No, I know. No, I died. No, I'm not trying to answer that. I'm just thinking about like radio, like FT.
I am hot potatoing that one back to you, Rocky.
I would say usually.
No, as far as I know, of course, when I read the article that the switch and bait, yeah, the FTC is always going to get in when you have predatory type of advertising, regardless if it's over the air or digital. We've seen that with display, and luckily, I have not run into that on the audio side where I was like, yeah, it's not making me feel good. So I think we can count ourselves lucky, and I would say that we probably adhere to it, even though I'm not really sure that FTC actually, actually the FTC probably does. FCC does not have jurisdiction over internet though. So, I had to go back to my legal days. Okay, last one real quick, we'll get out of here. This is what I love.
All right,
these. It's
cool.
like stump the panel.
This one is from Scott. He said, how effective is it for internet radio to sell Airtime as a platform for podcasters to expand their audience?
Oh. Want to take that one, Sarah? So basically, it's almost like the old broker shows where I have a great radio station. I want to go ahead and take your 30-minute podcast and put it in. Does that make sense right now? Will podcasters take that?
I mean, I've seen it done. I know a few publishers who have done that, and also the other way where they've taken radio shows and then distributed them on podcasts. And I mean, I don't see why you can't do that. I know a bunch of people have been doing it repeatedly, and they're still doing it, so it must work.
It must work. Most people continue to do stuff that works. Okay. Yeah. Well, perfect, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and let everybody get back to your day. Everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us. And all of you in my squares, looking forward to seeing you in the flesh and sharing a drink with you here soon at a conference, hopefully in the next couple of months. So thank you so much, guys.
Thanks for a great panel, Rock.
Bye.